Um, so our next speaker is someone that's running for Congress. He's going to be a rock star in Congress, and he's going to shake up the establishment. Um, he is someone that is not afraid. He is someone that's actually going to stand up against the establishment, someone that's actually going to hold accountable the swamp that has grown and metastasized in Washington, D.C. And we need more fighters like that. We need people that are willing to go up against Democrats, but also go up against the neocons, the people who want to drag us into these endless wars. And so we have someone that's actually going to bring transformational change here in North Texas, someone that's actually going to put America first, put Texas first. Let's introduce Brandon Gill.
Thank you, Carlos, and thank y'all for being here. I know it's a little early on a Saturday morning. Marigold looks like it's a little early for her, so I'm sure it is for y'all too, because she gets up at 5 a.m. Yeah, she's happy about it now. There you go, buddy. This election, you always hear this is the most important election ever, and this one really, really is. Whether it's Trump or Cruz, and Cruz has a tough race this cycle, all the way down the ballot. It's amazing to me that how different the two parties have become. On one hand, you've got the Democrats who are trying to promote pretty consistently some of the most grotesque, evil things imaginable. Whether they're socialists pretty openly now. I mean, the only debate now in the Democrat Party is whether you're a socialist or a communist. These people want to spend money we don't have on things we don't need that drives prices up that all of us get to feel every time we go to the grocery store. I mean, there's a reason that prices are up 20% since Kamala Harris got into office, and it's because Joe Biden has been spending money like it's water. And the people who are really going to have to deal with that, other than us right now, are people like Marigold, who are going to wake up and a $36 trillion debt that we have right now is going to be $50 trillion whenever she gets older, if we don't stop it now. And then we look at what they're doing at the southern border. And it's not just an issue of American sovereignty, which it is. We've essentially ceded territory to some of the most evil drug cartels in the world. But Marigold's so cute. It's,
Dad got distracted.
yeah, got very distracted there. But it's intentionally bringing in drugs and crime into our communities. And it's ripping apart our social fabric, and we can't stand to do this longer. You look at what they're doing in our schools right now. Everywhere the left is going, it's a path of destruction. They're flooding our schools with pornographic materials and then trying to call us, say that we're the ones who are trying to ban books whenever all we want to do is keep dirty, nasty books, I can't say around Marigold, out of our elementary schools. So this is what we're up against this fall. Now, I can say that the good thing is that I think the numbers are on our side. Most Americans don't want what the left is pushing. But the way we win is by making sure that we get out to vote and that we fight back and that we knock doors. Amen. During my primary, we had a heated primary, and you guys all saw what happened. We had about $2.2 million came in against me. And this was in an 11-person primary before a runoff. And this was all from D.C. It was pretty wild. That doesn't usually happen, but they really, really, really didn't want me to get to D.C. So we were in kind of a tough position whenever all these attack ads started coming out because we didn't have $2.2 million to spend on our own ads. I mean, we were outspent by quite a bit. But what we were able to do, or what you guys were able to do, is to go out and knock doors and tell your community members and your church members that these were lies and tell them the truth. And at the end of the day, that is what wins elections. It really is we the people. It's not money. It's not super PACs. The numbers are on our side. We've just got to mobilize our team to get to the polls so that we can win. And that's what we're doing today. My opponent, we don't need to say his name. Most people don't know my opponent's name, so let's just keep it that way. He's been going door to door a lot. I think he's been doing it almost every weekend. I don't think that he has a group near this size, so we've got the numbers on our side, but we've got to punch back at him while he's going door to door. We've got to do it 2 or 3 times as big as he is. So thank you guys for coming out here. Let's get Republicans elected all the way up and down the ballot. Let's get Cruz back in D.C. Let's get Trump in the White House, and let's get Andy Hopper in Austin as well. So thank y'all. And here's Andy Hopper, the great Andy Hopper.
Whatever. Hey, y'all. So I want to thank Brandon for basically fighting and moving the needle. How many of y'all know that in order to actually change the reference point, the current state of affairs with regard to where we are, we don't have to basically pass every single bill that we advocate, but we have to articulate and just make those principles public and air them out in the public sphere so that people can understand them. And how many that idea is encompassed in something called the Overton window. How many of y'all know what that is? So a lot of folks, when you go down to Austin and visit with the swamp, they ask you like, why did you run? And you can see in their eyes, like, why did this person run against the guy that he ran against? Like, what was wrong with the old guy? And my answer is always the same. Listen, I believe that we're in the midst of an existential threat to the existence of our civilization, not just our country, not just our state, but Western civilization as a whole. And, I people door to door will say, I don't feel like voting. I don't think that it matters anymore. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, are we on Plan B territory? Because I'm good. Like, if we want to be at Plan B, just let me know. I reload ammo in my basement. I just need a little time to spend some time with that. But if we aren't in that situation, we need you to vote one more time. And my attitude is that just like Brandon, I want my kids to live free. I want them to live unencumbered by a government that is oppressive. And that's not what they're going to face. That's not what they are facing. My oldest is 23, just turned 24. And, Grant is he's a guardsman. He's just graduated from tech. He has a bright future as an engineer. But when you look at wages, they haven't changed in 20 or 30 years, really. For engineers, it's not changed much. And you see that across every field. But just like Brandon said, the cost of living has skyrocketed. It's not in these kids' future to sit there and think about a home, in the burbs. Like, they're actually thinking about, well, maybe I have to drive an hour to work so I can, live out in the middle of nowhere and I can afford to live with my family in the way that my parents did. So that's what we're fighting for. And we don't have to win everything at every moment that we're trying to advocate for new legislation, but we do have to articulate and push it. We've got to basically drag, pull, and manhandle that Overton window back to the right where it needs to be. And that's what I'm going to fight for. So when I tell people, hey, listen, why are you running? Why did you do this? My attitude is like, I think that this is the end. Like, we have to stand up together. And it doesn't take a majority, right? When you look at the American Revolution, it only took a small, vigorous and, unrelenting minority in order to basically win the day. And so we have that. And so I think it's important to recognize that there is a bright hope for our future. And Brandon's going to fight for that hope in Washington, but we need to fight for it at every level, because if we're going to save our country, we're going to save it from the bottom up. We need people to basically mind the store in Washington and try to do everything we can to keep that behemoth out of our business. 2.5 million unelected bureaucrats isn't going to go away tomorrow. But the thing is that when we get Donald Trump into office, we'll have 4 years to basically start to recover a lot of the sovereignty and the state rights that I think we all agree. I think President Trump agrees that we need and rightfully have as Americans, because our founders never agreed to what we're in the midst of. And I think that if they were to be here, they would say, hey, listen, your main guardian of your liberty is your state legislature. They actually espoused in Federalist 26 that it is the duty of your state legislature to be always suspicious and jealous guardians of the rights of the people against the tyrannies of the federal government. And if necessary, they should be the voice and the arm of your discontent. And that's what we should be doing. We should be talking seriously about doing what we did at Shelby Pass across the entire border. We should be talking about having a state active duty military that does not report to the National Guard Bureau, so we don't have to worry about them federalizing it. We should be talking not just about having a suppressor freedom bill that gives you the right to own a silencer in Texas that was made in Texas, but we should be talking about whether or not you should be able to build a truck in Texas without all of the EPA garbage and sell it to anyone in Texas. We should be talking about whether or not it's one of the few and enumerated powers of the federal government to tell us where we can frack a well in Texas. So all of that, with this Chevron decision that was passed a couple months ago in the Supreme Court, we have an opportunity to vigorously pull back a lot of the power in the states that our founders intended rightfully to be something that should be managed in Texas and not in Washington, D.C. So that's what I'm going to fight for. And the cool thing is like we have over 20 conservatives that agree with these principles, with these guiding principles of liberty, and we are going to try to stick together, and we're going to move the needle in Texas. And I think that Brandon's going to do it in Washington. I am so excited for Brandon to represent half of Wise County. It is going to completely change the narrative to have Brandon and Ronnie Jackson represent this corner of North Texas. It'll change everything. So we're so excited for Brandon. So excited for Marigold. I think Marigold needs a sister. So, I think that's time to start planning. Never too early to start planning the next one. But anyways, thank you all very much for coming out. And just remember, I read a book a couple months ago, and it was really interesting because it was about Thomas Jefferson. And Thomas Jefferson had this very interesting view of what he called the natural aristocracy. Now, don't get weird, like all of you all are members. And what he says is that our goal, your goal, knocking doors, engaging with voters, is to identify those people, because those are the people who are naturally supposed to take the mantle of leadership, that have the will, that have the anointing from God to basically step forward into the gap. And that's what we need at this time. We need to identify those members of the natural aristocracy that should be leading our country. Because again, it doesn't take a majority, but it takes all of those people who are equipped and have the will and the desire and just the interest in standing up for our country in its moment of need. So when you're knocking doors, just imagine that you might be meeting that person that might be your next state rep or might be your next congressman or in 20 years, because we need to start building those people up. And I'm really excited to see so many young people here, because that's what we need at this time, So thank you all very much for coming, and let's just fight until the end. Thank you very much.